Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Trisha Haley to welcome you to our webinar today.
Thanks, Stephanie. And thank you to all of you as well. Hello, my name is Trisha Haley. I am the coordinator for state and territory technical assistance for the Office of Child Care. And I just wanted to take a minute to talk about how excited OCC is about a new round of this very unique TA opportunity and the work that's been done over the course of the last several years with the Impact Project. Our leadership is also very excited about it, and they would be telling you that instead of me, but this webinar conflicts with a retirement party, actually, for one of our longtime federal managers. So I am the messenger for the OCC excitement today. I have had the opportunity to work with the Impact Project team essentially from the beginning back in 2016, and it really is one of the most exciting and effective partnerships that I have seen between TA providers and state and territory lead agencies. Of course, all of our TA is built on these kinds of partnerships, but we've seen over and over again that the intentionality and the length of time that is leveraged in the impact projects just allows for a different kind of approach to capacity and systems building. And you'll be hearing a lot more today about how it has worked for state and territories in the past, as well as how it might be able to work for you and your team. Speaking of which, there are far more interesting people for you to hear from today, so I will stop there. But I do thank you all for taking the time to join the presentation today. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues at that retirement party when I say that we can't wait to see what comes from the next round of proposals and projects. So thank you so much. I will hand it back. Stephanie, I'm going to hand it to you. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's who's getting it.
Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Harriet.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you so much, Trisha. Stephanie, if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'm Harriet Dichter, and I am Consulting Director for the Child Care State Capacity Building Center. And along with Trisha, I'm really thrilled to welcome everyone to today's discussion about the Impact Project. I will be joined in our discussion by 3 state leaders who are going to share their experiences participating in the Impact Project, because we thought that for all the great information we hope to share with you, there's nothing like hearing it from people who have partnered with the Capacity Building Center for Impact to talk about what they've been doing and what their experiences are like. So a little later in the webinar, we'll hear from Christina Hultquist, who's from Alaska. We'll hear from Chad Allgood from Mississippi, and from Shantae Brown, who is from my home state of Pennsylvania. So let's go to the next slide if we can, please. So today, basically, we'll be focusing on round 4 of the Impact Project. As Trisha mentioned, we started this project quite a bit ago. We actually began this work in 2015, and it is actually really gratifying to the team who works with states to have formed trusting relationships with states and have had the opportunity to work with people in the past. And now we're going to have a new opportunity to have an additional 8 states, territories, and tribes joining to the Impact Project. So let's move on to the next slide. So what is the purpose of the Impact Project? And the core idea here of the Impact Project is really around helping states, as states, territories are developing and expanding their own capacity for planning, investing in, and implementing quality early childhood systems, policies, and practices. The idea of this really is to be systems oriented in terms of how we in the TA side of the equation can really be helping you. Now let's go to the next slide. What does this really mean in practical terms? So the first thing that's really critical is each impact project is different. The projects are state specific. They're really based on the state's vision and priorities. Also, we can see that as the Office of Child Care is our funder for the Impact Project, the TA and the project means that we need to embrace core elements or approaches within CCDF. Now, I think all of you know that CCDF is ultimately a systems building approach in terms of how the law is laid out and the parts of the program. And so there's a lot of latitude in here in terms of the kinds of projects. This year, however, the Office of Child Care and the State Capacity Building Center are going to give additional consideration to proposals from states for impact that focus on one of the following OCC priorities. The first is implementation of the CCDF program. That is to say, carrying out that program with its focus on improving good outcomes for children and families, and of course, communities and the providers who support them. A second priority focus for this year is anything related to spending down of federal relief funding that has gone to states. And the third is to address projects and opportunities that states are pursuing that are around supporting the early childhood workforce, whether that is addressing compensation or addressing other support strategies for the workforce. Let's go on to the next slide, please. An additional focus of the impact project has to do with identification of a capacity building goal. We think that this is one of the great benefits or aspect of impact because it is systems building, and there is a focus for each state around identifying a capacity goal and really being able to work on that capacity goal. So in this little graphic, I wanted to share with you just at a very high level the dimensions of capacity that we use, and we'll be working with the participating states and territories and tribes to identify what makes sense to you. This is very high level. We actually have a whole tool with greater details on it. But let's really start with those elements. So you'll see that up at the top, there's the sun, culture, and climate. And this is really dimensions of capacity in terms of the values, the beliefs, the norms, the traditions, the work environment. How is the work environment functioning to really support capacity and the system? Second element here is way down at the bottom of that tree, which is the roots. And of course, that is the all-important engagement and partnership with all the constituents who are really part of building a great early childhood system and really are doing a lot of the work themselves, of course, along with state staff. So those are citizens, families, providers, oversight groups, others who have a strong interest basically in the success and progress of early childhood. Third element here is in the watering can, that's what we've called financial resources. So what does that mean? Okay, dollars really matter, but this is maximizing revenue that states have, managing well the finances available, and forecasting what needs are. The next element I want to go to is down at the bottom, the soil or the infrastructure. That really is a lot of the know-how to be able to execute and to be able to get the work done. Critical functions, planning, execution, policies, procedures, governance, what the service continuum is, decision-making, quality improvement. These are all pretty critical. And then the last one I want to point to is what we put there as the plant food. And that, of course, is knowledge and skills. That is really, what is the expertise? Basically, content expertise, other expertise necessary to have sound early childhood systems design, and of course, going well beyond design into development and implementation. So that is another aspect of impact, is the ability to work together with states, territories, tribes to identify capacity goals and then really provide support. Let's go to the next slide, please. So why an impact project? Well, one of the things that we've learned in terms of the services that we've been able to deliver is that impact does give a dedicated consultant, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, who is a champion for you to assist you basically as you are looking to make big impacts in your own early childhood system. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we're going to review now what you might expect. Okay, what are some of the core parameters and services basically from impact project support? And we've outlined those on our next slide. So first, a dedicated consultant. And I'm going to introduce you to the team members in a minute. So what is the dedicated consultant doing? This is someone who is there to work with you. The consultant is results and systems oriented, and so we're there to support you as you are building your own system. We are there also to understand. I like to say, people have heard me say this endlessly, it's really frustrating to have outside assistance where they don't understand your own state context. So we put a lot of emphasis on getting to know as quickly as we can what is your own context, history, values, and vision, basically, because ultimately this is about the work that the state, territory, or tribe is pursuing. The consultant also is really serving as a working partner to be able to get things done, right? So what does that mean? We're there really to assist you. And we will bring a lot of different skills into the mix, into the partnership. Also, the consultant is there as a thought partner to help shift and clarify thinking, to sort of be a little bit further away, help you look from the balcony, maybe look closer in as well. I also want to say that we basically have a focus here in terms of communication. All right. And we want to focus on excellent two-way communication in terms of building the relationship and the value add that the consultant brings into the work. And at the same time, we are really looking for the strengths in your people and in the work to be able to celebrate progress and successes, whether these are big or small. They matter in terms of the momentum for moving the work along. And then finally, I just want to note that it is really important that we value diverse ideas and opinions as part of getting the work done and helping to bring together people with diverse perspectives, experiences in terms of supporting the work. Let's move to the next slide. So this is the team members, and Stephanie, actually, even though she didn't say her name, was the person who started our call off. So thank you, Stephanie. And then other team members are Sangri Frolicker, Coral Manning, and Desiree Reddickhead. They're all on the call today. And so you can scroll down to be able to see them, but here are some pictures of them. And they each bring a great deal of experience and caring and passion actually for the work with the states. Let's move to the next slide. So impact is also what we think of as support that you can count on. And so what does that really mean? It means that we are providing ongoing consultation and TA, and it's specific to your state. It's not about some other state's issues. It's about your own communities and jurisdictions issues. That also means that we are talking to you and working with you quite a bit. And we've put up here on the slide that we're meeting at least 2 times a month. And often I want to say there is weekly meeting and possibly more. There's a lot of communication here. This is a two-way communication. We are serious about providing tailored supports. And I think I've tried to mention this already to you, that we are flexible in terms of the services that we're providing. That might include drafting materials. It may be helping you think through or identify optional approaches to things, maybe looking and researching possibilities, facilitating meetings, engaging in coaching. The last aspect of the support that you can count on is that you can expect that we'll be on site with you at least 2 times a year as authorized by OCC, and hopefully even more than that. Let's go on to the next slide, because we've talked a little bit now about what are the services that you could expect to receive through impact. What are the kinds of commitments basically from states, territories, and tribes to be able to participate? So the first I want to note is to have an executive sponsor, 2 co-leads for the project, and a management team. So there's a little bit of a group effort here. The next is that you'll finalize a project plan. You'll see when we get into the application, it's pretty high level. We're not asking for you to put a lot of pen to paper or make a video, however you choose to do it, to do the application. But we'll want to work with you to get more of a project plan going as we get into the work. We've talked about having a management team. That's pretty important. It's not a party of one to get the work done. And what we know is that we need leaders, but we also need a team of people basically who are committed to move the work ahead. We like to see meaningful family and partner engagement. This issue we've mentioned around different voices, honoring different perspectives, understanding in the systems, what it really takes to have our systems mean those who are beneficiaries of the system as part of this. Also, we will expect for people to identify the resources to support the impact project. I think this probably cannot be overemphasized. We are bringing to you TA, but we are not bringing financial resources. So resources basically stay with the state. Other commitments we want is a two-way street that I've mentioned before on communication, and then to be able to track progress so that in fact we can improve in our service delivery to you, but also to assist you in improving and kind of getting to the eye on the prize that you've established for the work that you want to do. Let's move to the next slide. So some of you may be curious now to know, well, where have you been working, since we did say that this is our fourth round of impact, and where are you now? And so this little map shows you where we've had previous projects and then the current states that we're working with. And Coral also put into the chat for you so that you can go online and be able to understand that particular landscape. Could we go to the next slide, please? We also thought it might be helpful to give you some examples basically of previous or current impact projects, because we want to show you actually there's a breadth of content within even the priorities that we're talking about for this year for impact. There's quite a bit of idea generation and different kinds of ways that people have wanted to approach their project. So in one state, we worked to create a first ever statewide strategic plan that actually involved multiple state agencies and some very important players from external communities as well to that state. In another state, we worked with the state to establish a new class of licensure, which the legislature actually passed a law to do this, to have substitute placement agencies. In another state, we worked with them to be able to create a new model for state governance. In another state, we worked on a very exciting cross-sector infant and early childhood mental health support system. In another state, we worked to develop a new framework for thinking about comprehensive technical assistance, elevating what that meant and how that interrelated to other parts of their quality system. In another state, we worked to improve state and tribal collaboration. In another state, we worked to establish an infant toddler support network. And finally, in another state, we worked to create multiple new and revised existing credit-based career pathways. So that gives you some sense of the breadth, basically, of ways that states have stepped forward and asked for assistance from impact. Let's go to the next slide. So here, these are not ideas that you all have to embrace. I want to say this, these are just like questions. Your questions are, what would move you forward? Okay, so here are some of the kinds of things that possibly might move you forward, but this is really for everyone who wants to pursue this opportunity to ask and answer for yourself. Ideas here are having a unified policy agenda with other partners, moving from the concept to the reality of having contracts in a child care assistance program, looking at workforce compensation supports, having a coordinated system of quality supports, looking at sustainability. I want to draw attention to this one too, because there was a priority around federal relief resources, and that's not unconnected to that. And then last is reforming how a state might approach quality improvement. Let's go to the next slide. So I've talked enough for the moment about background for Impact Project. I am really happy now that we're joined by leaders from 3 states that we've had the pleasure of interacting with. And each of them is going to share some of their own experiences in terms of their approach to impact and what they think and how they have appreciated basically the opportunities. So our first speaker is going to be Christina Hultquist, who is from Alaska. So Christina, welcome, and I'm going to turn things over to you. And Christina, I think we're going to remove the slide and let people just see you as you're talking.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me. And I'm more than happy to talk about our experience with the Impact Project. So my name is Christina Hultquist, and I work in Alaska at the Child Care Program Office, and I'm I started working in quality and capacity building, and that's when I was working on the impact project. And at this point now, I'm also the lead administrator for the Child Care Development Fund. So our first impact project, when we applied, our goal was to improve the state's early childhood system by facilitating the development of an actionable and aligned statewide strategic plan around early childhood, and then to work to support the implementation of key priorities of that plan. Why we applied for the impact project was because it was very apparent that our early childhood system in Alaska is fragmented. We have services and supports programs for children and families across several departments, divisions, and of course, public and private partners, several initiatives. So I identified in the work, there was a lot of us that were having the same conversation over and over, but not as one united voice. And so that was really difficult. So that was our approach, and we were really excited to be awarded the impact project. I will say it was difficult in putting our application in because, those of you who work in state service know it's not always fun to highlight where you're struggling and what the challenges are, especially if some of those challenges are within the state work. And so we were thrilled to have received the impact project after we applied. An interesting thing that happened at that same time was, and an example of how we're fragmented, we hadn't known, we just got awarded the preschool development grant through a different department who applied, Department of Education. And that happened at the same time as we were awarded the impact project. So we started talking to each other about how we needed to support each other. Can you be on my leadership team or my management team? Here's the goal. We're trying to create a strategic plan that's statewide. And so then we also were introduced to someone who received the Indigenous Project launch, and that was through a Native organization here in Alaska. So our first meeting with our consultant from the Impact Project, we really shared this challenge of how are we going to spread this work out? And so through some creative thinking and support from our consultant, we were able to, we suggested a joint task force. So let's all combine leadership, leverage the leadership of these three initiatives to together work on improving our early childhood system by creating this statewide strategic plan. So we pulled all those voices together. Our capacity building goals were to establish and maintain relationships with these partners, use systems thinking in carrying out the work towards the common goals, and really improve how the state carries out the work so that we moved forward in our state from just talk and analysis to results and products. We created and produced an actionable and aligned statewide strategic plan through that joint task force, which again was led by the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Social Services, and then South Central Foundation, that Native Alaska Health and Wellness organization. We brought partners, public and private, together. It was a really thorough process. We had communication and visits all across Alaska for input into the plan. So that was really exciting. I would say one thing that we recognized was, with the support of our consultant, just the capacity in our state. We're a large state land-wise, but a small state population-wise. And so we were all the same folks working together. So we felt like we didn't have to have process set up or, agree terms and agreements of how we would work together, decision-making processes that were actually outlined. Those were some key pieces that through our work from a consultant who's working right as a step back could notice these are some pieces that would really be helpful in working together. And it turned out that it was really hard to get the people in Alaska to change how we work together a little bit. but putting those key pieces in place were instrumental in keeping the work moving forward. When we hit roadblocks, when we didn't know how, when we had decision points that we weren't necessarily agreeing on, just having those key pieces in place were critical. So that was a little embarrassing, I feel like, for us for a minute to realize although we all got along great and worked together so often that, the way we were approaching the work was part of the challenge in us moving past false starts. Every time, I just also want to mention, every time I thought we would never get this far in the work, it was always like, wow, we really just accomplished this and now we're moving to the next level. So it's really pushed me as a leader and helped me identify my own challenges and barriers. And I don't want to say push me out of my comfort zone, but really just doing that, pushing me out of the comfort zone. And that trickled to my colleagues, to my coworkers, to the partners who I'm used to working with. It's been really great to see over time how some of these pieces that were introduced by an outside voice, a critical, someone who could be a thought partner. We weren't being told this is exactly how you need to do it. It was like helping us figure out what was going to work best for Alaska, because what's best for your state. It's just sometimes hard to take these best practices and implement and, make that work for your state. So I think that was a really critical support as well. I'll just highlight quickly progress to date. Again, we did create and produce that strategic plan. Then we shifted, once that was done, to prioritizing how to implement key pieces of that plan. So we focused next on governance reform as a key objective to carry out from our strategic plan. We developed a governance task force, and that was designed to develop a draft governance change approach to our early childhood system. So again, head on directly addressing the fragmentation of our system and some of the key problems that we wanted to solve with governance as a strategy. We also, both our joint task force and our governance task force developed and implemented an outreach plan to secure feedback from partners on the strategic plan and on the draft governance change approach. So that's been really exciting work that's continuing. We are now shifting currently to implementing a second priority objective of our strategic plan, which is focused on reforming Alaska's quality improvement approach. So the work has really evolved. And again, I'm surprised every time I revisit like where we're headed next. So I know working in the state, sometimes things don't move as quickly as you'd like to. And that is true for some of my priorities, but I will say other things it's been such a catalyst of improving what we set out to do when we applied for the impact project. So thank you for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Christina. That was great. We're going to move on to hear from Chad next. So we'll take the spotlight off Christina and let Chad have the floor. And I actually failed to tell everyone at the beginning that if you have questions, just put them into the chat, and we're going to do our best to reference things if there are questions as we go from responding in the chat. So Chad, let's hear from you next about your experiences with impact.
Hi, thanks, Harriet. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess, depending on what part of the country you're joining us from. My name is Chad Allgood. I'm the Division Director, Division of Early Childhood Care and Development here in Mississippi. We started with the Impact Project. I think it was back in 2021. Sounds kind of weird to say it like that. Kind of give you a little bit of background about myself and the context of when we applied for the Impact Project. I started as the CCDF administrator for Mississippi right when the pandemic hit. My first day was March 16th of 2020. And so as many of you know, that's kind of right when things got real, as they say. And so stepping into this role, not only just trying to learn normal CCDF stuff, but then also with the additional relief dollars and everything that came down, definitely a sense of being a little overwhelmed. I'm sure that's something none of you can relate to at all. So anyway, when I stepped into this role, our subsidy piece was doing pretty well. We had received technical assistance in the past on that, so we didn't really need a lot of help in that area. But where we did need a lot of help was with our quality improvement system. And Mississippi has in the last 10 years has undergone 2 iterations of our quality system. We had a quality rating improvement system up until December of 2016. It was called Quality Stars, and then the administration at that time made a decision to go in a different route, a different direction, and that was replaced with what we currently have in place, which isn't really a true quality rating system. So we knew that along with changing that, we also needed to rebuild the support network for quality improvement in our state. And so the opportunity to apply and participate in the impact project was extremely timely for our state. When we applied, our project was rebuilding or retooling our quality rating improvement system. And that's what we're in process of doing. And what we're really looking at is, rather than calling it a quality rating improvement system, we are renaming it into a quality support system. And we're doing that for a couple of different reasons, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes. And the reason that we chose that is, again, because it was an extremely crucial need for our state. Not long after I took this position, the contractor that was doing most of the training and technical assistance, as well as hosting the resource and referral network in our state, they decided they did not want to continue the contract. And so it put us in a position where we were kind of scrambling to keep things together, as well as do some rebuilding there. Past administration here at the agency, none of which is here anymore. And if you happen to Google Mississippi and Mississippi Department of Human Services, you can learn all about some of the issues that our agency has been experiencing in recent years. But we are definitely moving past that. Our current administration has made great strides in regaining the trust that was placed in this agency. So anyway, past administration had made some really not great decisions about our quality system, particularly how child care programs are assessed and how families can identify programs that meet their needs. Our current system relies on self-assessment. It may or may not be as accurate as necessary for the point of ensuring that families are receiving quality care and education. There was also a problem with our current system lacking key supports that child care providers really needed to build up quality in their programs, but also sustain that quality. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about like setting measurable goals for quality. What is it? What are they trying to do within their own programs? Also issues with insufficient training and technical assistance opportunities, particularly in the infant toddler realm, and with children that have special needs, as well as family, friend, and neighbor care, or what some people may call family child care. We also did not have a professional development registry. And also we lacked a really strong R&R network. So just a few things that needed to be addressed, right, in that realm. So we applied for the impact project, and thankfully we were selected. Now, let me tell you, when Harriet mentioned tailored technical assistance, she means it. I will say that we started working with Amy Page, and then Stephanie came on board. I guess it's been over a year, Stephanie, that you've been with us at this point. They really, Amy and Stephanie both really took the time to get to know our state, to really look at how our current system is set up. And we, at the beginning, we just had some very frank conversations about what our state looks like, what I thought our needs were, what I thought providers thought our needs were. And I think that's probably been one of the really incredible things about this project is, like I said, it is extremely individualized to the needs of your state, which sometimes, I've participated in different types of TA. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Sometimes TA centers throw more work at you and you're like, okay, no, I can't do anymore. That is not the case with this at all. Nothing about the impact project has been burdensome for me or for the members of my leadership team. So we put together a collaborative plan, and in my notes here, I have collaborative in all capital letters because, again, the consultants that are participating in this project, it is a collaboration. I have never felt like Stephanie has pointed her finger at me and said, you must do things this way. It's very much, saying, look, she listens to myself and my team. And when she gives feedback, it's based on her own expertise, and but it never feels preachy or, I've never felt intimidated by by her, by Amy, by any of the members of the Impact Project. And for someone that's a relatively new CCDF administrator, that's important. It's important that you feel, I think the word that was used earlier, I think Harriet said you need a champion. I think that's true. You need a champion for your state, but especially if you're trying to make some changes, it's important that you feel like you've got folks in your corner that know what they're talking about. Because as we tried to implement some of the changes, some of the state legislators, some members of agency heads, they've been like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound quite right. And so it's important that you have someone that, that you can rely on to help give you that expertise, to help give you that data that you can, use to really justify some of the changes that you're making. Other things that Stephanie has done, she's met with myself, she's met with the key leadership members from my division. She has, and we're still in the planning process of this new quality system. One of the things that we knew we wanted to do was get feedback from childcare providers and from parents. Stephanie has helped us do that. She helped us organize a series of town hall meetings where we literally went across the state and got feedback directly from childcare providers, as well as we sent out a survey. She helped us organize those town hall meetings up to the point of even helping us put together the presentation. She has the information that we've gathered. She's helped us, sort through that in a way that can be digested and used as we start to put plans together to implement new pieces of our quality system. She's also acted as a liaison for our agency. There's a team that has met, and it's a team of child care providers and parents that have met to put together a series of recommendations. And Stephanie was a part of that to make sure, because there are certain things that are non-negotiable, right? There are certain things that you have to do to meet CCDF requirements. And she was kind of there to make sure that this team didn't go off in left field and, give us recommendations that would be completely unhelpful. And then, of course, Stephanie's also worked with other TA folks. Anna Carter, who's our state systems specialist, she works with Anna routinely to, when we're getting technical assistance on whether it's background checks. I'm sure none of you have had an issue with background checks either, things of that nature. So like I said, we started in 2021. I think we initially committed to 3 years, but I'll hang on to Stephanie as long as they'll let me keep her around. She's been incredibly helpful. And we've really enjoyed the time that we've been with her. So like, I think, for me, thinking about this project, and one of the biggest accomplishments so far that the Impact Project has helped us accomplish. When I stepped into this role, this agency, and in particular my division, there was a lack of trust with us and the childcare community in our state. Previous administration had made some really bad decisions that heavily impacted the childcare community in a very negative way. And so when I stepped into this role, providers didn't really feel good about this division or the decisions this division had made. And we knew that we were going to do this rebuilding piece. The previous system, or actually it's the current system, the system that we're looking to replace, was really put into place with not very much input from the child care community or from parents. And we knew we wanted to do that. But how do you engage with people who don't like you? How do you engage with people that, when you say, hey, we're going to have this meeting, they don't believe that that them coming is going to be worth their time because they think you're going to do whatever you want to anyway. And I really didn't know where to start with that. And it was during a meeting that we were having with Stephanie where, we had been having these conversations and talking about these town halls, and she had kind of helped organize those thoughts into a framework of a presentation. And when we were going through it, I had that aha moment, that light bulb came on, the good feelings, came in, because I realized, this was something that we were going to be able to do. Because how do you engage a community of providers statewide? Well, Stephanie helped us think through that process, and I realized that what we were setting out to do was going to be something that we could accomplish. I could finally kind of see where we were going to go in the process, what our next steps were. And I'm really proud of the fact that through that process, through the engagement that we've been doing with the town halls and kind of getting things jump started, we have a model of engagement where that we have shared with child care providers where we're going to keep them involved in the process. We have made great strides, and I'm happy to say that as a whole, providers have a better feeling about my office and about the work that we're doing. I've heard from several of them. One group who actually calls themselves, they think of themselves as the militant child care, a militant child care group. They have actually come forward and said, that they feel really good about what our office is doing. And for that, I'm really proud of, not just myself, but just our team as a whole. I think that our child care community, they do feel good about the direction that we're going in, which is really, really good. For several years now, they haven't really known what the future is going to hold or felt confident in the future of our state, but that is changing. And a big part of that is because of the work that we've been doing with Stephanie on the Impact Project. The system rebuild, we're still a work in progress. So we're really kind of at the beginning of it. But even though I know that we've still got a long ways to go, we're going to get there together. Stephanie has definitely been a champion for us for the work that we're doing, really for our state. We definitely claim her as a Mississippian, even if it's just as an honorary Mississippian. So, I'm just thankful to her. I'm thankful to this project because, like I said, it has been, it's been a really great help to our state. And I've been very grateful and very thankful that we've been able to participate.
Thank you so much, Chad. Really appreciate you sharing. We're going to have one more speaker, Shantae Brown from Pennsylvania. And then just so people have a sense of where we're going, because we'll be ending at 2 Eastern. After Shantae has had an opportunity to share with us, I'm going to go through who can apply, how we're going to help people during the application process, and some other things about how to stay in touch with us. So Shantae, let's hear a little bit from Pennsylvania.
Sure. I'll try to be brief too, because I know we're running out of time, but I had to look at the time. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shantae Brown. I'm the Acting Deputy Secretary for the Office of Child Development and Early Learning here in Pennsylvania. I, like Chad, also started with OCDEL during the pandemic, so it was a very crazy time, but super excited about the work that we've been able to do with our consultant, Coral Manning. So our project, our impact project, is to currently rewrite our Pennsylvania child care regulations through the lens of quality, equity, and provider burden. This was very important to us because it had been a long time since Pennsylvania had completed a total rewrite of their regulations. Some edits had been made to meet some federal requirements in 2020. But we noted that our current regulations didn't really match with our quality standards, which were revised in about 2018, 17, 18. And we had also heard from another provider about the burdens that they experienced when trying to keep up with their quality standards, the state childcare regulations, best practices, their local regulations. So our plan was to really try to bring some consistency to the various requirements. If you talk to our providers, they'll call them demands that are being placed on them in their daily work. So I think we have the best TA consultant, Coral Manning. Coral provides organization to our project by leading our team strategically. She keeps us up to date on the happenings of our project and provides agenda and notes for our weekly meetings. We do meet with her weekly. And she also provides a leadership that gives our project real purpose and direction. Her external perspective often provides a view from a national level and gives us some support with like some supplemental resources that's needed and some ongoing research, really helping us to find the appropriate source or options that meets the very specific needs of Pennsylvania, because like most states, we have some very unique needs. We have dedicated a lot of time to our project. It started in about the spring of 2021. And when we started the project, I was actually working in a different capacity. I was the director for the Bureau of Certification, and I actually served as co-lead on the impact project. And so once a week, we met with Coral to work on our project. And it was very helpful because it kept us on task and really committed our work to move forward based on the timeline that had been created. We are on a super tight timeline to be able to submit these regulations. And so the project also helped us to think about some additional staffing supports. And those staff members were excellent in the external engagement and managing the project overall. And this was helpful because the co-leads in the project are two directors, program directors, and it wasn't always easy to just solely focus on our impact project, which was rewriting our regulations. And recently, now that I've moved into the acting deputy secretary position, I'm no longer serving as lead on the project, but because I have the former experience and relationship with Coral, I'm aware of the project, its goals, and I can help support the project even from an executive's perspective and have the conversations with the exec level staff to help garner support, ongoing support for these changes in our regulations. I think our state is most proud of the impact project focus on engaging the community to really build the capacity to co-create these regulations in a much different and more equitable way than we've done in the past years. Our project has focused on diversity and inclusion with an emphasis on external engagement that establishes a precedent moving forward for other projects that we will move forward or look forward to doing in the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, or OCDEL. It really helped to shift our team into thinking about the tools and the resources that are needed, because it wasn't just about rewriting the regulations for us, but also what additional resources, guides, or supports are needed. How do we work on being more transparent in writing these regulations? In the past, our licensing team conducted inspections solely based on regulations. There was no real interpretive guide or resources that providers or stakeholders could refer to. And so making the entire CERT and policy teams a part of this impact project, or participating in this impact project, to think about it with the provider burden and equity lens, we were able to bring both groups together to share a perspective that the other group may not have necessarily had, especially in terms of operations and how this looks for our inspectors when they're out in the field. These ongoing conversations or discussions or working groups, as we call them, really help the team to understand the value of both, of having both at the table, And although they didn't always agree, the conversations helped prompt the need to review best practice, discuss what's currently happening, and the impact of this, that a decision may or may not have on our providers. So we were able to have we're calling it, we can't necessarily call it the final draft of our regulations, but we did put together a reg package to be submitted to, it's currently with our executive team. But our project continues, and that's only because Coral and our, we call it the Impact Project team, are now focusing on resources for both the licensing staff and our childcare providers. And so before, we only had regulations and siloed conversations between the policy and the CERT bureaus. And now we have ongoing discussions that will help craft some support resources and guides. And that's what our team is currently working on with Coral Manning. And we're super excited about being able to do that, as this is a new process that PA will be engaging in. So I tried to go as fast as I could, so.
Thank you, Shantae. That was great. We really appreciate that.
Sure.
So we're going to go back to the slides. Okay, we've been trying to answer questions in the chat, but I'm now going to talk about who can apply. And that seems pretty relevant since I see some questions in the chat about that. So who can apply? You have to be a state, either individually or in multi-state consortiums. Just so you know, we've actually never had a state multi-state consortium, but it's an option. You can be a territory, and this is a first for impact, so we're really thrilled about this. Tribal nations that receive CCDF funding can also apply for the first time in this round. There has to be a state collaboration element in that part of the proposal. Let's go to the next slide, please. So one of the things we are asking, I have to say this is optional, but it helps us understand, is if you think you want to participate, then the state leader just sends us a little note. This is all up on our website too. This is just an expression of interest. I think this is something I want to pursue. We're asking people to do that by February 21st. So that's a couple weeks from now. Let's go to the next slide. What are the application? What does it look like? I'm sorry, Christina, I know how stressful the application was for you, and we've been continuously working to try to make it not stressful. So these are the elements of the application. Who's going to be involved? What are their roles? What's the project you want to pursue? What do you think success will be? If you know yet what you think your strategies are, we know that we're there to help you with that. So, but if you have ideas, share what you think your timeline is, and what you think is the type of assistance and consultation you need. So we're trying not to make this highly stressful, but you do have to put a little bit of intentionality behind it. So let's go to the next slide, please. Because here, this is different from all the other rounds. We asked ourselves, well, we've always just done this basically like in words. So you can fill out an online survey. We have kind of fillable form, but we were like, okay, people communicate in really different ways. So if you'd rather send us a PowerPoint to answer the questions, that's fine. If you would like to have your staff just video record and send that in, that's okay. If you have some other idea for how you'd like to send in your application that we didn't think about, you just contact us and we'll talk to you about that. So that's the application. Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So state selection, because I think people want to know what's our rubric, right? How do you know, basically? So we do want you to finish the application. So please don't not answer questions, because that's not a good thing. All right, so we want to look at, did you fill out the questions we're asking? We have always been, and you could see this from the map, trying to assemble for this next 8. We want diversity in terms of state capacity and geography. We are going to look for OCC's priorities, which is the core purposes of CCDF, the priorities we talked about, which this year are around implementation, basically use or sustainability of your COVID relief funds, and then also workforce. And we also are really interested basically in terms of making sure that your project is system-wide. Someone, Jillian, thank you, is, I know I keep saying early care and education, we include school-age childcare. It's the full scope of what we service in childcare can be included. So if you have a school-age something, hurrah, that's really fantastic, and please pursue. Next is we will have some sort of Zoom meeting or Teams meeting with the team as part of the application. And lastly, we expect to be able to tell all of you basically by the last week of April. Let's go to the next slide. We're almost done now. Basically, our next slide is the timeline. So we're January. We would like you to send in expression of interest. It's not required. You can still apply if you don't. We have set March 28th, which we hope is enough time for people to fill out applications. Between now and March, we want to be talking to you. Talk to you as our team with state systems specialists, with your regional offices. There are different ways to get in touch with us, but this is a discussion time. In April, we'll meet with people virtually, and then we'll let people know by working with OCC towards the end of April. And you've got the idea here that we expect to be able to start basically, by late spring. Barb is asking just to make sure when we say states, do we only mean states? The answer, Barb, is no. States, territories, and tribes, tribal applications have to be in collaboration with their states. Let's move on, Stephanie. I think we're almost done. Application support. So we have been talking a lot today. We are going to have office hours. So you can sign up for office hours, including the minute before they start, just so you know. And you can also email us basically, and we will talk with you. We have spent plenty of time talking to people about what they're thinking of pursuing as they've been considering applications. So this is informal. Basically, it's an opportunity for you to ask any question, and we'll be there. Let's go to the next slide. This is actually when the office hours will take place, and we have tried to be respectful, basically to come up with, sometimes we have so many time zones, right? When we think about the states and the territories and the tribes. So we've done our best here to have different times of the day. If these don't work for you and you want to talk to us, as I said, just send me an email or send to our general email, and we'll set up one-on-one time with you. Let's keep going to the next slide because we're almost done, which gets us to any questions or answers, that we can try to give beyond. So Stephanie, let's remove the piece here and look at each other, because in our 1.5 minutes left, someone might have a burning question or a comment that you want to make, and you can do that either by chatting, or we can have a brave person in a call of, now we're 130 people, who would like to unmute and share with the group. Okay, I am not seeing
I
any.
have a question.
I will be.
Okay. I think I heard Barb first. Barb, go ahead and ask your question. Hopefully we can answer it.
Sure, thank you. So are these TA processes are opportunities to support tribal and state collaborations and not just consultations, but actually working together on when tribes have their CCDF and states have their CCDF, and kind of come together with Head Start even, but is
Yes.
that the idea
That's
here?
the idea. And this is new. So we were talking about this today. Hopefully we've made this point anyhow. The work is as it's coming from states, territories, tribes. Basically, we're not coming to say what you would want to do. People decide for themselves. We've given the priorities so people are aware. OCC is the funder, right, for this opportunity. And so we have to fit again in the systems building frame of CCDF for the work. But you can see there's been such a rich variety of projects, and it's a rich opportunity in terms of priorities. But that was a great statement, basically around a tribal state connection and collaboration. Okay, I'm going to answer this last question that's in the chat, and then I'm going to get us all out of here on time. Okay, so actually, sorry, Sangria, I thought you were a question, but you were just a comment basically in the chat. Apologies for that, around sending in the expressions of interest. So again, we would really appreciate the expressions of interest. It's not a requirement, but it helps us to understand. So let me close by thanking all of you for taking an hour of your time to spend with us today. We really have appreciated the opportunity to share with each of you, and hope you also enjoyed hearing from states that we've had an opportunity to work with already. We're looking forward to having a fantastic group of 8 new partners to be able to serve, and hope to remain in dialogue and discussion with all of you. So thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.